People would laugh. Not the old people would get it. We don't call them cheater parts, but they may be in the gray area. My dad and I built the ASA shop next door. The latest date that this was probably made would have probably been in 1993. The first race car from the ground up, I was 13. Chris says, "Where'd you get this?" He points at me and he goes, "Where'd you get this?" I said, "I made it." And he goes, "No, like really, where'd you get this?" I go, "I made it."
So we're in Grand Rapids, Michigan with Johnny Benson, and we're gonna see where you came from.
Well, this is kind of where it all started for me. You know, I grew up in this house, and then the small side, it's been added on a little bit. Small side is actually where I started working in the shops, and then this shop here was built probably when I was like 5 years old, and we ran my dad's cars through there. And then we also build race cars, parts, pieces, quick change rear end spindles. We do all kinds of stuff. So most of that all took place here. When I started racing and I started on the dirt, and then I was outside. We didn't have the other shop or this shop yet. And then we finally built this when I started late in my late model stuff. And then when I started running ASA, I run that out of this garage. So my majority of my life I spent in this shop though.
Let's see what's in there. We have not been in there yet. Yeah. We try not to see or ask any questions that before we start filming. So it's
probably not a bad thing. Probably got to figure out to turn the lights on. And then
everybody watching learns the same time we do.
Yeah, I know, right?
Shelby's gonna
come on.
Check it out for us.
We get lights. See what that light is. It's very dark in here, so hopefully your camera will do it. So my dad, he still does some stuff in here and things of that nature with spindles and axle tubes and things of that nature. But we used to have a plate that I'd push back in that corner, and then we'd actually pull it out here to build the cars. So. I mean, we weren't building tons of cars, but I think I probably built about 200 of them over the years. So but we do maybe 4 or 5 during the off season for customers, and it could be asphalt, it could be dirt, and then of course all the parts, and mainly do parts is what we do. So we do spindles and, like I say, quick change rear ends and stuff like that. And my dad also used to make spindles for Larry Shaw. He's built them for other people also, and then of course we use all that stuff on our own cars.
The way it is in here, the same way it's always been, pretty much.
Pretty close. I mean, it's small. Of course, we added on in the back, so the backs, we got tubing and things of that nature. Now that wasn't here most of my time, but at the end it was. So then. A lot of old, things of that nature. So we don't, like I say, don't build cars anymore. When I moved down south in 94, I was the one that built the cars. So when that happened, my dad didn't do anything with the cars. I took care of that, and then so he continued on with the parts and like axle tubes and spindles, things of that nature, and brake ducts and dump cans. He did for Motor State or Lane Automotive up until recently. I think my dad's 86 now, and axle tubes are kind of heavy, so he's like, I don't want to make those anymore. So he doesn't carry on with that. Now he still does dump cans.
Did he build the shop and the addition himself, or?
He did. He had built the shop. He actually built the house. So my sister was born. He started on the house. He finished the house when I was born, and then of course he built that. I remember him building this. My dad and I built the ASA shop next door, and so I believe I probably helped on this back part of the addition, but. Yeah, my dad he's gonna make it, or you're gonna build it. He doesn't job a lot of stuff out. I mean, that's where I learned pretty much everything. This as a kid, I would come down and watch him. At times, I'd watch him weld, and I thought that was kind of cool. And then pretty soon, he's like teaching me how to weld, and it wasn't long, and then I was welding aluminum race seats at 7 years old. So that was kind of crazy. And then I ran some of the machinery up in the machine shop, and cut pieces. And then as the years go, he keeps teaching you more and more stuff. So I actually built the first race car from the ground up. I was 13. Frame, I meant bend it, build it, welded it, and the whole deal. I was 13 years old.
You did that in here?
That was just right here.
When you're standing in here looking at some of those parts and pieces or things on the wall, what comes to your mind? Like, what are you drawn to? You come in here and you're going to look at something and think about a fond memory. Where do you go? That's
a great question. I've never been asked that. I always picture, the jig And like I say, we wheeled it back here, we wheeled it up there. And I don't know if I really think of one thing. You know, spindles we made. I mean, he's got a bunch on the shelf, you know, people this and that, whatever. And he doesn't make them near as much as he used to. A lot of places now have, Lake Shaw and all them, they've, you know, of course they're down in Arkansas, so they started making their own stuff, and so it's been less and less. And then of course, when I still built cars when I was down in North Carolina up until about 7 years ago, and my dad would make all the spindles for that. So he's slowing down. He's slowing down a little bit and enjoys working outside, playing with the garden. He does still some machining here and there and some welding. People want something fixed or something, he does all that now.
She doesn't care. We're trying to film something. She's like,
we don't care.
Ball.
It's all good. That's awesome. You know, all this machinery was here when I was a kid, so this stuff's been around for a long time. These things are dangerous. I remember I've been hit a couple times with belts and stuff like that, and I mean, so that thing's, I couldn't tell you how old that is. Let's see, it's got to be, I bet you it's at least 45 years old. This welder, I mean, I remember getting that, or my dad getting that when I was probably 18, 9-ish, 18, 20, somewhere in there. And they don't make it anymore because it's probably the best welder I've ever welded with. And when I was down there, when I started building cars down in the south there, now most of our stuff came up here. I mean, our stuff that we build they don't race down there. So the stuff will come up here, but I was looking for a welder and I wanted to get one of those. My dad tried to find one. He says, I don't think they make them anymore. And I said, I'll buy you a brand new one and I'll take that one. He goes, now. But that is, even today, that's still the best welder I've ever welded with. And I mean, like I say, that thing's every bit of 40 years old. And I don't think it's ever been worked on. It's incredible. Like I say, I tried to buy one and I couldn't.
Is the welder that you used when you were 7 still in here?
That is not. I think that, I don't know where that one's at. I don't know, unless it's out back in the other shop. I've not seen it in many years, so I don't know if it exists.
Where was your workstation when you were making a seat or spindle or something like that?
Right here. Do all that. Now as far as welding and things of that nature, obviously you use all the equipment, saws and all that stuff to create the pieces. But this piece of steel has been there as long as I can remember. And this piece here, we always use that to clamp stuff on and move it around. It's been there for a long time. Of course, we heat by drain oil. I mean, that was here when I was a kid. Not quite that old. We used wood to start with, but now I just use the drain oil stuff. But I was probably in my 20s when he built that. So it's been working for many years.
Normally when we do these things, we go into a building and there's nothing in there, and then people are like, this is where the welder was, this is where the workbench was. But
this is all still here because my dad still utilizes it.
This is like a time machine. Everything is there. This is really cool. Head
back here is this pipe bender I learned on, and it's still, now this is probably every bit as old as I was, because my dad built cars obviously when I was 4 or 5 years old. So I mean, this has been something that that thing's got to be 50 years old, and it still works. Crazy how good it works.
What are those wheels from?
So these, I can't take one down. They got a pipe in it. So these, my dad actually made these. So my dad, when he first started off, he was in partnership with a guy with Safety Racing. And so those wheels, or I don't know if he got he's got some upstairs that are 2-piece that he built for the wheels when he ran certain modifieds. And then he actually made these. These were, I think, were on the Super also. But then we ran it on my dad's late model car when he raced out at Berlin. So those, I couldn't tell you how old those are. And but they're magnesium. And then now this one is a little bit different. This is we got this from one of the guys that runs my dad runs Super Modified with, and I believe that's a titanium wheel. And then of course we did a lot of our own wheel. Like we didn't make the shells, but we made the tabs, and we put our own wheels together for most of the racing I did. Even up and through ASA, we did our own wheels because we'd indicate them and get them as perfect as you could. And sometimes buying a wheel, they're not perfect. And it's one thing my dad is always big on, was it needs to be as perfect as you can. We bought the shells, I think, out of Iowa, and then we had burned the tabs out and stuff and made fixtures, put them together, and spun them in a lathe to get them straight, and then weld them up. So made a fair amount of wheels too in my day.
Jeez.
And this saw's been here, again, as long as I've been here.
I think all this old equipment is better than anything you'd buy today.
It works very well.
I'd take any of this over something you could walk out of it.
Now, obviously, it's probably had bearings put into it and probably a different motor by now, because that thing ran all the time. Every car that you build was cut off this. Every axle tube that my dad built was cut off this. All the nubbins. He did all the machining for the nubbins for Bobby Seneker he builds spindles also. And so my dad machined all the nubbins, and then he built his own spindles for his stuff. And he built them, I think, for a left-hander or something like that for many years. So between all the solid bar that this thing's cut and all the chromoly tubing for the axle tubes, I wish we could have kept track of how many axle tubes that he had built. When Lane was buying them, he'd buy 30, 40 a week. And for as many years as I can remember, up until recently, I think it was maybe 3-4 years ago, I think my dad finally quit making axle tubes for the quick change rear-ends.
I don't even know what to say. This is really neat. He's got like a whole factory in the backyard.
Yeah, and it's my dad doesn't throw anything away. We got fixtures. I don't even know what that fixture's for up there, and I can't remember. And he doesn't throw stuff away, which is fine. Yeah, some of the stuff is from my dad's race cars, jigs and pieces. Some of it's mine. Some of it's our dirt stuff dirt car stuff that we had ran, and it's just it's crazy. Some of the things, like the brake ducts that my dad makes are there, and we make everything on them. We spin them in the lathe, and then of course you can get 2 out of each one. You scribe them in there, cut them out, and then you have to obviously bend them and drill the hole and put that in. I couldn't tell you how many of those I made. Usually you make those, you make about 50, 60 pair at a time. So you're in the dump cans. They start, well, that one, you must cut this one off one. But we roll the cones, we roll the bottoms, we got a roller out back for that, and then you weld them up.
I always like seeing the little efficiency things that people come up with in their shops, like it's kind of how it builds itself. Like, I want to put this here, I need an airline there, or like that. The little crane there, was that there because you used to put the chassis?
Yeah, we lift the chassis up on it or flip them over, and it rolls all the way back here, so you can roll it, front to back. And like say when I was young and a lot smaller, I couldn't move them. Like now, I don't have a crane at my place. I just pick them up and roll them. But today's stuff's a little bit lighter. But I can theoretically roll the chassis over and weld it and things of that nature without the crane. The crane would be nice, but my ceiling in my shop's a lot higher, so I haven't figured out how to hook one of those up in there without getting a scissor lift or something like that. But
what's in the ASA shop?
Well, we can go take a look at it if you'd love to.
Yeah, let's see what's in there. I'm sure there's more stuff to look at in there, but I also want to see what's in there too.
Probably not. It's kind of like a storage place now. We can go upstairs in there, and there's all kinds of stuff, old ASA stuff up there.
How old were you when you decided that being a race car driver is what you wanted to do?
Be perfectly honest, I don't know if I ever looked at it that way. I didn't have, at my time, I would say, okay, I'm going to start driving. So the story on that first car that I built by myself as far as the chassis was, is I build it, and my dad says, well, we're going to make it a roller, which is not unusual. So, you know, put all the A-frame spindles, rear end and stuff like that and get that done. And then he was like, well, put the interior in it, which we did a fair amount of that. A lot of people like doing their own, but we would do that. So I did that. And I got to that part where it's done, and then all of a sudden he goes, well, start putting a body on it. And it was a dirt car at the time. And I was like, look, we don't do bodies. We do on our own stuff, but usually customized, we don't do bodies. They do that. And so I started putting a body on it. And this whole time I knew every car that was built, who it's for, and things of that nature. Well, I'm like, who's this car for? Well, he'd never say anything. And then one day a customer came in and he was wanting a dirt car. And anyways, we get talking and I says, well, we got this one, but I'm putting a body on it and all that. Well, he ended up buying the car. And when he left, because I was always in this shop, my dad was mainly up in the other shop unless he was welding spindles and stuff. And he was like, who is that? And I go, I don't know. His name's Chris. That's all I do. And he goes, and I said, well, he bought that car. And the look on his face, I was like, I didn't know whose it was and all that. And then he was like, well, while we were going to finish, I was going to let you drive it and drive it on the dirt stuff. And at that point in time, I was like, I like just working on cars and building them. I really didn't have the desire to say, hey, I want to go race. And so he never brought it up again. And I did drive his car once and somebody else's once, just like a practice thing. And I was like, I can just build cars. It'll be fine. I like working on my dad's car. I like going out there. And then it was, my dad retired in, I think it was 81. And at that point in time, I was like, well, who's going to race for the business then? And that's when I built a car to go race. And then I did build a dirt car. I ran 3 years of dirt. And then between working here and trying to race a race car, and then at that point in time, I had a full-time job in tool and die also. So I was trying to work all these jobs, and I was starting to get burned out. And I was like, so I took a year off, and then I would go to the track, help some customers, and then just basically, you know, I worked, and then worked here too. Then I got to the point where I built an asphalt car and then started running out at Berlin Raceway. So that would have been, let's see, I ran 80, 82, 83, 84, took 85 off, so 86. I started running out at Berlin, and then I ran there 4 years, and we ran pretty good, but we built like the spindles and rear ends of stuff for Butch Miller, which he's not far from here. They were in Coopersville. And when Butch moved down south to run some of the cup stuff and all that, the owner of that asked me to drive the ASA car. So that's how I got started in the ASA. And of course I says, yeah, I don't care. I said, that'd be kind of cool. And then I thought, I don't want to run 300 lap races. You know, I like the 50 lap, 40, 50 lap races. So that was interesting to do that. And I think that's what kind of paved the way to move forward. But I really didn't look like, okay, what's my next thing? My dad always taught me, run where you're at, be good at what you do, try to win a championship, and then move on. And then, so that's kind of what I did. And then we won the championship, and then I went to the ASA thing. Well, we went through that, and we were fortunate enough to win that. And then I started getting calls from down south, and so then I did make that jump to go down there, but it wasn't planned to do that. It just happened.
So after Johnny Benson left this shop here in Michigan, he went down to North Carolina, won the Busch Series Championship with BACE Motorsports. He moved to the Cup Series. Johnny's big break in the NASCAR Cup Series came in the Pennzoil car with Bahari Racing, which we have actually done a video inside that shop too. And it was in that Pennzoil car that he established himself as a Cup Series regular. And if you have eyeballs or can read the car behind me here, you'll know that we are also sponsored by Pennzoil and have been for several years now. I could stand here for a long time and tell you till I'm blue in the face why Pennzoil Platinum is a great motor oil, but that's not the point here. The point here is that us as automotive enthusiasts and racing fans, we need to support brands that support things that we like. Every single race car you have ever liked watching would not have been on that track without a sponsor. Especially in the 90s, it was really well known that NASCAR fans were super sponsor loyal. I'll buy products that are manufactured by sponsors of drivers or teams that I don't particularly even like. But if I'm at a store and I'm going to buy something and the decision is a company who puts money into motorsports and a company who does not, I will pick the one that does, because I care about the bigger picture. Pennzoil supports racing of all types. They support the documentation of history that we have been doing. So next time you need an oil change, you dump that yellow bottle into your engine, you can feel good knowing that you are supporting things that matter to you. And your engine's gonna love it, but we already know that part. And if you do your next oil change with Pennzoil, take a picture of it, post it on Instagram or Twitter or something, and tag me in it, and I'll share it.
You know, I run the Busch Series for 2 years, and we ran well. We won the championship there. Then I got an opportunity to run Cup cars. So I always was able to win a championship and then move forward. It wasn't, as many years as I've raced, I've never defended a championship, which is weird. And I don't know, you know, when we won the truck championship, when Bill Davis closed, I did go run for another team for a little bit. Well, then we didn't end up running they shut the team down. So that would have been my only first attempt to ever run to defend a championship, would have been that year. But I think we went like 6 weeks, and then he just changed everything, threw everybody out and tried to do something different. I don't really know the reason why. It was kind of a weird deal. So this is where I did do some of my late model. I think my championship year with the late model, we did house it over here. I worked on it here, and I ran my ASA stuff out of here. Now the first 2 years I ran for Troop Motorsports, and then the second 2 years, when they came to the new car, I didn't have time to design a car and build a car. And then Port City, which my dad made parts for them too, some like axle tubes and rear ends, he had called and says, hey, maybe we'll do this together. He says, you need to be doing this. Because I didn't, at that point in time, I was not going to run. And so he actually gave me a car and then one engine. And then we got a couple more engines. And we actually ran that car out of here for 92 and 93. I think we ran second in the points and then won the championship between 92 and 93. We did out of right here.
So how was that set up? Where did you scale the car and all that?
Yeah, everything is just right. I used to say it's probably been too long. There used to be marks on there where you put the scales, and I got to see if we got the scales, because people would laugh. Not the old people. The old people would get it, but I don't know if I think they're back. Oh, they're still here. And watch your head on the way in. I know you're tall. I should turn the lights on. Your light good? I got to see if flip them through there. Give it a shot. There you go. The lighting is not the best, but so we use these old grain scales. Like I did, these things scaled all of my dad's cars for as long as I can remember. I did all my late model racing, scaled in a car with these. Most of my ASA were scaled with these cars, with these scales. And they're called grain scales. I think well, these are Fairbanks. I guess Toledo makes some, and they're extremely accurate. They're the electronic scales, which work great. I forget what percentage. They're 1 to 2%. They could be 1 to 2% off. These, I don't know where the hangers are. There, you can zero them out. They actually got BBs in there, so you could make them perfect. There was like one BB you could drop in there to zero the scales out. So they're extremely accurate. And I know a lot of old time guys that have been around forever, and they say something about grain scales, and they go, "Oh, I grew up on those things."
How did it feel in here in the hottest part of summer? It's like not, I don't see, I mean, like that's like transparent. It's not super insulated in here or anything.
No, well, we didn't work out of this backside. It was kind of more storage, but yeah, we never had air conditioning here. My dad still doesn't have air conditioning here. So during the summer, yes, hot. When you're welding, doing cars, parts, things of that nature, and in the machine shop, I think he finally did put a window unit up there, but it was hot. It is very hot.
What about the brutal winters here?
Winters we'd heat, because we've heated with wood as long as I can remember, and then the house and the shop up front there are still heated by wood, and then we use drain oil down in these two places. But most of the time I worked in here. I would only be in here if I was working on my own cars, or if we had a couple extra frames, we'd have them over here. So at times I would heat it a little bit. Other than that, it was usually pretty cold in here. But if you were going to spend time in here, you'd try to fire up the wood or the oil burner. But no air conditioning. No air conditioning here. No air conditioning in the house. It was just, at times it could be pretty brutal.
What are these from?
Probably old late model stuff from 100 years ago. And like if you bend them up, you'd use them as patterns. And I don't know why we still have them. But it's just, we got a lot of the stuff. Like, I think I took a lot of the gears and things of that nature, but you know, some of the stuff was used on the ASA car and some tooling. All the springs he still has. He's still got hubs off of my ASA car, and all the springs that we used were, you know, they still sit here. And at times I ask him, why don't he do anything? There's probably decals from my ASA car, my late model stuff. There's all decals. Probably grab something. Who knows what it is?
We'll see what it is. This is part of the treasure hunt here.
Treasure hunts. I don't know what that. I was just 21. That's back when you probably had to do them in two colors. Yeah, so there's the red and then the black. You know, nowadays, obviously, to make life a lot easier. That's just the outline of the back.
See that drawing in the car?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, you get a lot of fans that make stuff for you. And so this is a Berger Chevrolet emblem. I mean, that was probably, now I had an ASA car too. So, I mean, at best, the latest date that this was probably made would have probably been in 1993. So it's been laying up there for a long time. And then Berger Chevrolet is a Chevrolet dealership here in Grand Rapids, and they used to sponsor my dad, and then they have sponsored me my entire career, except for the stuff down south. But they still sponsor the Super today, and all my late model, all my ASA stuff. Matt Berger, his dad sponsored my dad when he raced out at Berlin. So the amount of years that they have sponsored, I think it started mid-70s. He started sponsoring my dad, and he's always sponsored my dad and me, and even today he still sponsors us, which I'm wearing one of his shirts. And I think they were established, I think, in 1927. Berger Chevrolet was. So, and like I say, Matt Berger is the one that did all the stuff with me, and then he'll be at the races this weekend. He comes out to them, and you'll see Berger on the car out there even.
Yeah, I didn't know they were in Grand Rapids. I knew the name from the custom Camaro editions that they did and stuff. So that's a cool tie-in there.
This is one of the cabinets we had with ASA. I'm sure it's got all kinds of cool stuff. Let's see what's in there. Yeah, so we got old pictures, ASA pictures. Like my mom and dad, they won't touch it. They won't move
That's
it.
Awesome.
You know, who knows what this engine stuff, pictures that you go through the year.
Take pictures of things before you take it apart.
Somebody made a bunch of pictures of the truck and they put them in here. And I still remember this. This is a titanium connecting rod, and my dad used to race super modified with Max Stalker, and Max Stalker is tied with Jet Engineering, and they made titanium rods. So this came out of one of my dad's cars that broke, and I'm trying to think what car it was. I think it was the last year he run, so 1981. That was, and I always kept it because I thought titanium was the coolest thing ever. So I kept that rod that broke out of that car. Still sitting here today. Who knows what's in the other? Just stuff. Yeah, brackets, springs, who knows? Whatever.
Like the old comp cams.
Yeah.
Psychedelic looking logo.
Yeah, so wiring harness thing for the radios, probably from the ASA card, ignition boxes. I mean, it's just, probably some patterns and things of that nature. The hydraulic throwouts for the, I think we used Jericho transmissions at that time, so it's a hydraulic stuff, so they're still there.
Where did 21 come from?
My dad had run 21, and then I had just inherited it, we'll call it. And then I was kind of laughing because he had a kid that, after I moved, he had a kid running a car out of here, and he's helping him. Well, at that point in time, I was starting to build cars down there, so I built me a car. Actually, my first one, I actually came up here and built the car and then brought it back, or the frame and stuff, and then brought it back down south with me. Because I didn't have a shop at that time. I just had it at my buddy's house. Well, I'm getting ready to going to go race it. And I asked my dad, I go, well, what number are you going to put on your car? And he goes, what do you mean? I go, well, I got my car done. I'm going to put numbers and lettering and stuff on it and all that. And he goes, well, yeah, you have to find one. He says, 21 staying on my car. And I go, hey, it's my number. And he goes, no, it's my number. I just loaned it to you. So when I had my own car, I had to change the number. So I went to 10. And so I ran 10 of my cars when I had my own from down south. So I switched and ran the 10, which was funny and ironic at the end that I ended up running the 10 car in the Cup Series. So that was kind of cool.
Was that a coincidence?
Coincidence, yep.
What made you pick 10?
I really don't know. 10 just seemed like a great number, so I'd and then I had built another car, and then I thought, well, what am I going to put on that? So I just says, well, cut 10 in half. So I put a 5 on that car. So it was I have no idea. Like 21 better, but I like 10.
So your mom, she was a fabricator, I've heard.
Yes, my mom does still do stuff. She helps. No, she doesn't weld or anything like that, but like the brake ducts, she cuts them out and things of that nature. The dump cam stuff, she scribes them out and cuts stuff out on a bandsaw and things like that. And as a kid growing up, yeah, she was in the shop all the time too.
That's awesome.
And working. So it was like the three of us. My sister, she had to mow the lawn. I had to do the wood.
When did you realize that not everybody's mom did that?
It was probably a lot longer than what you would think. It was because I really didn't go anywhere. My one friend lived 2 doors down, and my other friend lived. If you go across the street through the woods over that way, about 1.5 miles, 2 miles. But either he was over here helped me, or his dad worked for Standard Oil, and he built oil pumps and I don't know what to call it, the registers part that they put on the trucks that delivered fuel oil to cars. So I go over there and help him build some of their stuff, and then he was over helping me do stuff. So that just, I don't know, I just never really went anywhere. Going back to the dirt car that I built, that Chris Patterson was the guy that bought the car. And so he picked it up. He come over and got more parts, and then all of a sudden we're just outside, and we were there a couple of weeks. They were going to go down to Florida for Speed Weeks. And my dad says, we'll just take him with you. And I'm like, what about school? My dad goes, well, I don't care. I'll figure that out. So I go into this, my dad may have known him. I didn't know him, so I just felt like my dad says, oh, here, you're going with these people. I know you don't know who they are, and you're going to jump in a motorhome, go all the way down to Florida for Speed Weeks for 2.5 weeks, running dirt races down there. That was my first trip in racing outside of going to Berlin. I was like, I go down to Florida with these people and spent 2 weeks down there racing Jacksonville, Ocala, Tampa Bay, and all that. That was, like I said, I was 13 years old at the time, and I wish I had one here. I don't know if I have one. I don't know if I could find one, but I had built, through some help with my dad, but I built an aluminum steering wheel at that time. And so my dad says, well, give it to Chris so he can use it. It's the first one we built. As we're down in Florida, Tampa Bay, for the very first race, I'm just sitting as I worked on my dad's car, I was never allowed to leave the trailer. I had to stay there. One, because I wasn't old enough to be in the pits. And so I didn't move. Well, Chris and his dad are getting tires. I'm just sitting on a trailer. Trailer's unloaded. This guy walks by, and he he stops and looks in the car, picks the steering wheel up, and he's looking at it. He looks at me sitting on a trailer, and he's looking probably for Chris, and then all of a sudden he starts to walk off with the steering wheel. Well, at 13 years old and I made it, I just assumed this is my steering wheel, even though he gave it to Chris to use. And then right at that time they come and I'm saying, hey, that guy there, he stole the steering wheel. What guy? It's that guy there in a white suit with the green on the back. He goes, it'll be okay. I didn't know who it was. Well, it ended up being Charlie Schwartz, and which obviously is a big dirt guy back in the day. And then he went out, must ran practice, come back, and he went to Chris, says, where'd you get this? He points at me, and he goes, where'd you get this? I said, I made it. And he goes, no, like, really, where'd you get this? I go, I made it. And he's like, okay. And he pulls a card out, hands it to me, and he goes, here's my card. I need 30 of them. And I says, okay. So I came home, told my dad, I says, yeah, this guy gave me his card, he need to make 30 of these steering wheels. And he goes, have at it.
That's awesome.
So you're 13.
And at 13, and then it didn't take long. CJ Rayburn found out about it. He called to order 30 or 40 of them. And so then my dad drove me to Ohio, wherever he was at the time, just to look at his cars. And I tried to work out a deal to swap the steering wheels out for a chassis, but that didn't work out. He didn't want to do that. So sold him the steering wheels and off we went. And then it wasn't long after that, Randy Sweet started making them. He took over the market. So it was kind of cool to do that. But my dad is kind of also the one that he doesn't like to do tremendous amount of production work. He likes new stuff. He likes creating new things. And now obviously you're going to do some, like with spindles and that, you're going to carry on with that type of stuff. Same with axle tubes, but everything else out of that. And I think I've fallen in the same thing. I like building race cars. I like building different design style cars. Even though I built a lot of them alike, building a new car and trying to figure different things out, come up with new stuff was the best part of the job.
Yeah, I'd like to see if there's one of those aluminum wheels sitting around here.
There's not going to be one in here. I don't even think that I couldn't tell you the last time I made one. I was probably 16. The last time I make one, so that's been a couple of years ago.
Are there any other?
Well, if you're brave to go upstairs, we might be able to find might be sketchy. Or at least, of course, I'm used to watch your head stuff, but Pennzoil. But yeah, that's a head part. Here's a handle that we used to hang on to. And then, so my dad does have a couple of dump cans up here. So usually when he makes it, he'll make 20, 30, 40 at a time. And then he throws them up here until he sells them. He doesn't like, even though that's a production part, he's not going to make one or two. So you can make a bunch of them because they'll sell them. Like ARCA uses them. What do you call it? The wheel and modified stuff. They use them. They're not allowed in the upper levels. These things pour too fast. Back in the day. So watch your head. You're on the tall side, but feels like you're always going to fall through the floor. But it's been. But like these are some of those old wheels I think my dad had made back. I couldn't tell you. They're bolt togethers. I think somebody actually called and wanted some for some project he was doing out west. Somebody from California heard about them. Of course, a lot of our ASA wheels, like or this style here, we bought the shells and then I machined the centers out. We made our own wheels so we could change our offsets whoever we wanted. So I made a bunch of those. And then those are like a store-bought. These are the ones we made. And in my late model ones, we use a tab style and a wide 5. So we made the tabs for those. We just didn't make the shell part. And then I wouldn't say old, but they side bells for the rear ends. They're of course they're magnesium, so they, the time they machine them up and run them through the acid thing and acid treat them, they look brand new when you do that. But
you got plenty. Are those old ASA noses.
Yeah, there's ASA parts back there, P's parts. A lot of the stuff's ASA. There's some body stuff, and
that's cool.
Just kind of weird, different things that some of the stuff you just throw up here is from the ASA cars and other things, A-frames, pieces, and like this is probably the dump can that we ran in the ASA car that we won a championship with. So we'll never get rid of that. I should take that home.
Yeah, so do you got any of your old noses hanging up in your home shop or anything like that?
I don't. I got banners and the trophy stuff, but sheet metal, I don't.
Huh.
I don't know why. I don't. I just don't like the wall stuff. But this stuff's been just up here being knocked around since probably, well, it was 1993 when we won a championship. So
is that a restrictor plate manifold?
it is, but I actually ran that on the late model. They were we were messing with some different things. They weren't really using them, but we knew some people, and Berlin's not a huge horsepower track, and we always had too much horsepower, so we were trying to mess with doing a plate to see if we couldn't calm the engine down. And of course, as time went, some of the people that were building the engines started to figure this out. Then they would just build them with different cams and trying to take that big horsepower out right in the beginning. Because at Berlin, you could go there and not have any horsepower and still run good. Yeah, that might not be off my car. That might be off when the other kid was running after I moved, because they were 21 also. These are probably old ASA tires back in the.
Yeah.
A little hard. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of fun to come back, and it's been a while since I've been up here. Yeah, deck lid off something. That is probably not. I don't think that's one of mine, but it's possible. Who knows?
Did Berger help you out with crates to put things in?
Yeah, those probably all came from there. Yeah, yeah, but they've been around here for many years too, and
Or are these unused wheel centers that didn't get put in?
yeah. So I think Diamond actually was. Yeah, I think Diamond stamped these, and then because we're in the lightweight this and that whatever, so I took and cut them to make them lighter, and then welded them in just because these centers are so heavy. So we'd whack these out, and I forget how many pounds you'd take out, but like my dad is about lightweight, and so am I. But a lot of people, they work in pounds. We need to get a pound here. We need to get a pound there. My dad works in ounces. You take an ounce there, you take an ounce there, you're going to get to a pound eventually. And so when somebody goes, well, I can probably take a pound out of that, my dad's going to find it, okay, we're going to take whatever he can out of that. But every bolt, everything that he cut off, he says those ounces become pounds down the road. So you could go down through a car, you could probably find 100 things, 200 things you could take an ounce off of, and obviously that adds into pounds. So that's kind of how I grew up on that end. When he drove Max Stalker's Suit Modified, that was kind of late in his career. Them being tied to Jet Engineering, we used to get titanium. We made titanium flywheels. We made stuff out of titanium back in the late 70s. We did a lot of that stuff back then, but it was having that connection to get the stuff, because titanium especially back then, was not cheap. And I'd made rotors out of it before, and then obviously you could buy them, and a lot of places have outlawed them now. I still got them at my shop, but a rotor, we would take a rotor and cut it down as light as we could, and I think I run rotors on my outlaw car that were probably like 7 pounds, but the titanium ones are like 1.5 pounds. And a standard rotor is probably 11 pounds. But we would machine them and knock them off, knock weight off. We just did that on everything, which is which is really why I built the aluminum steering wheel. That was the whole thing. It was just, okay, this steering wheel is heavy. Let's make something lighter. That's how that came about. And so my dad did all that back when I was this big. And so it's kind of cool.
Did you ever make any cheater parts, or maybe, things that were innovative but not illegal?
We don't call them cheater parts, but they may be in the gray area. So there's, a lot of those rules come about because somebody made something that wasn't in the rule book, didn't say you couldn't do it, and then all of a sudden it doesn't take long that now it's illegal to do. That's how the titanium rotors, we'd run them for many years because it just said you had to have a rotor. It didn't say what it had to be made out of. Well, when other manufacturers started making them, and people get smart to hear about stuff, they started manufacturing and making them. I ran them for years. That it was legal. And then they, I couldn't remember what year it was. I mean, up in the last 15 years or so, all of a sudden you can't run titanium anymore in the rotors. But they're doing that today with, like everybody used lead, and then all of a sudden tungsten come up. Well, now they don't want tungsten in cars just because of the cost. There is an I-beam right there if you want to step on that for the next step, because it's kind of a step. And then watch your head on wet. Watch out, buddy.
I guess someone came in here while we were.
Probably my mom.
Okay.
Oh, okay. My mom and dad.
Yeah, I heard somebody talking. I wondered what that was.
Yeah, I thought I heard somebody come in.
The oil pump.
No!
There's Killer. This is my mom, Judy,
Hi.
Hi.
Mitch, and I don't.
Logan.
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 And the little
what's
puppy.
in here?
Well, we were upstairs.
Oh, jeez.
So I know all the ASA stuff up there.
The only thing I didn't clean up.
Yeah, right. Ugh.
That's not on, is it?
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Oh.
You want to tell any stories? He edits stuff. It's not live.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of these days it'll all get cleaned out. I couldn't even tell you what's even in these things. Oh, it's been so long since they've been open, they're stuck. Yeah, they're where they are. I'm not going to pry them open. I'll break the doors off them. And like I say, the last thing would be up at the machine shop.
Did you build your own engines?
No, once. Not cool. I love engines. I do not like working on them. That is one area that I absolutely do not like. And so my dad made me do it once. My last year I ran dirt because we went down to Eldora and tried to run the World 100. And I was the first alternate car. I think we qualified 66th out of 205 cars. And I was actually in a spot to make the race, and a caution came out in a heat race. Well, dirt here and dirt down there are very different. I didn't have any clue that the restart started off turn 2. I thought it was in 3 and 4 like every track that I've ever ran at. So we got just off 2, and they stood on the gas. Well, back then I was running a 355, on gas. They're running 406s on methanol. And they just all went by me. I was sleeping because I'm waiting to get, they started a race in 3 and 4. I just assumed that's where the restart was. I didn't know that. And it went by me, and I made it back up, and I was one spot short. But we were definitely into that spot to get in a race. And then I was the first alternate. A guy had a blown engine. And so I was sitting in the car waiting to go. And they had me sitting there and then that guy limped around, blowing smoke, engines breaking. He made it to the green flag and then pulled off going into 1. So I didn't get to run, and which I get. He wants to say they made the race. But so that year after that, I built a lot lighter car, super lightweight, to go run that. And my dad made me do a motor through the help of Max Stalker. They were building their engines at the time. We got it in the car. Now it was a bigger engine, 394. And I used to race in Muskegon, Thunderbird Speedway. We went over there, won the race. And then we were like, well, let's pull it out. And I says, it's got a lot more power. So I wanted to run it one more week. Well, when we got there, it broke that night. So kind of good and bad. Bad that it broke, but it would have been a lot better than going all the way to Ohio, go down there for that and have it break. We didn't have any spare engines at the time. So that was my first and only one that I worked on. I keep that to the professionals. I can build the cars, let somebody else build the engines.
Did it break from something you did? Or...
I don't know. I broke a rod. Now whether it, I did everything that I was supposed to, and using, because it was a point where you had to put that wire gauge stuff in there and measure the bearing clearance. I did all that, and now it could be that just didn't get it primed enough when I fired it up or whatever the second week or whatever the case was. It didn't end well. So then we can buzz up to the
let's see that.
Next thing. Of course, I have to turn lights on again, but...
Growing a lot of tomatoes.
Yeah, he likes his gardens. Tomatoes are good. Onions he gets, I don't know where he gets the things from. They're amazing. He does sweet corn out back. That's always really good. I missed that part. And I didn't have to work in the garden. That was my spot I didn't have to work in. All right, I got to go to that end and turn lights on. I can find my way through here in the dark. I'm back. There's one. There's one. There's one.
I like all the signs.
I guess it wasn't all of them.
I like all the signs on standby, out back, buy corn, out back, digging potatoes.
It's either for the UPS guy or people that come over. And so this shop was theoretically, I gotta find where's the other beam at? Oh, I think when my dad started, it was actually right here. This was the size of the garage when my dad started. And I don't know when he went this way. For the first segment, he went that way. I remember grinding a frame in here for one of my dad's cars when I was like 7. And that's where I started. My mom's got a picture somewhere. And actually, I may have it in my phone. But so I remember doing that. And of course, he kept getting more and more machinery. So he kept moving things further and further out. And so it's very tight quarters for all the stuff that we have done here. It's amazing in such tight quarters that we did as much as that we did.
Yeah, this is like before this addition, this is just like a one-car garage with some room.
And that's where my dad started his super modified in. And I don't know, we got we made these things. I don't know who originally made them. Probably ain't gonna snap apart, but for the quick change to lock the pinions, so we started making those for our rear ends and everything. It's just like everything that our own side bells. This is a little older design compared to the one that we had upstairs, but anything you can think of, we had at one point, like these are probably been here for a long time because we make our own brake pedal assemblies. I remember making these as a kid, making the pedals. Obviously, you can go out and buy this stuff, but my dad was always about making it. So we made them for our own cars and our own selves, and it just seems like it didn't matter. You just, my dad says, you want it? You got to make it, and that's pretty much. There is a welder. I didn't think it existed. I forgot about it. That was a welder. I welded up the first race car I did. Now that welder's welded up a lot of stuff, but that I'd have to ask. Does I say what year that thing is?
That's what I'm looking for.
I don't know if it's on there or not. I don't think that was the first welder he had, but I remember getting that welder.
Yeah, but the last thing you'd expect to see in here are CNC machines.
Yeah, we're doing all the nubbins and ends. He would cut, the bar stock, and then he would, machine it to that, and then this would go. This is either used for a spindle, or it goes in the rear end tube, and then like when he did them for Bobby Seneker, there was like this would be a Wildwood wide 5 We have our own wide 5 because we build our own hubs and everything, so it's a little bit different. And then you had the 5-on-5 stuffs. In 5-on-5, you had the housed out and stuck our steel, or not stuck our steel, stuck our products. So that's what, 1, 2, 3, there's 4 different nubbins that you make for either spindles or rear ends. And then of course, then he bought this because it got harder and harder to, almost impossible to find anybody that would do machining on magnesium. Lance, I think it was Lance Norris or something like that, that used to be over in Muskegon. He did a lot of machining for my dad, but he blew up his machine. You don't use coolant on magnesium. And so you're doing it dry where you got to keep your machine clean, because if it catches fire, you're going to burn your place down. So you're constantly keeping every part that you machine, you have to clean it, get it out of there. And apparently somebody come into their place that were doing our rear ends at the time and says, you need to be using coolant, this and that, whatever. And he's like, hey, I'm told not to use it. And the guy says, no, I don't really know the whole story, but he says, no, you can use coolant on it. Well, he was machining, I think, one of our parts or somebody's out of magnesium with a coolant, and it exploded and damaged his spindle in his machine, which cost about $20,000 to fix. And he says, I am no longer going to do anything to do with magnesium. So then my dad had to figure out a way to mean it, or do our hubs and the center sections for the rear end. So then he bought this machine, and then we kind of did it, or he did it himself. And this is what he's still got this. This is my old toolbox. Now he's got all his stuff in it. So when I worked in tool and die, this is my toolbox that I had.
Did you build the
No, he did all that. All I had, well, actually, I don't know where the top of the box is. I had a box that, maybe that's it. That went right there, and this is an added piece, but I don't know what year I bought this. This would have been when we started working there. No, I'm sorry, 82, and I went when I did the tool and die stuff. So this was my toolbox till I think I quit out of that and started just working here full time and racing. And
How old were you when you actually first raced in a race? Your timeline seems very different because you started like being an adult when you were like 10. So
yeah, now I was out of high, but see, I graduated high school at 17, so I think I was probably 18. First time I drove a race. I was old in the world of the racing in today's world. Starting at 18 at a dirt track is not that unusual, but for me to make it and go down south and do what I did, I was when I came down there and run Busch, I was 30 or 31. That's unusual for in today's world. I mean, you better be 17 today.
you think that's one of those things where either you have the ability to do it or you don't? Or what makes the difference to somebody who starts when they're an embryo versus somebody who could start when they're later and be right there?
I don't think it matters. There's a lot of people that started late in their life in it. It's just that today's, the way that I think either the market or the mentality is for owners, sponsors, and this, they want somebody young now. Well, they can't be down there without getting some experience. I mean, I forget what the trucks they had a younger age, and then they bumped it up. Because if I remember right, Kyle Busch ran some races, and then he was kicked out because he had to wait. Yeah. Until he turned 18. It was either Kyle or Kurt. I think it was Kyle.
It was Kyle because there was a Marlboro sponsorship on the track from the IndyCar stuff.
And they said you can't run.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what the answer is. I think starting off young and go-karts and all that's okay. I don't think I never raced a go-kart. I started out in a World Outlaw late model dirt car. That's what I started in. And just straight out of the box, go for it. And of course, they're different than they are today. But like I say, I ran 3 years. Now, we won some races. We ran actually pretty good. And I did have a dirt bike that I screwed around with. And my laughing point was like working for my dad. I used to love Sundays because I only had to work from noon to 6. I call it Sunday was my day off. I only had to work noon to 6. It was awesome.
Only half day.
Yeah, so I'd go out and get on the dirt bike. We usually have a gravel pit right up the road. At 9 o'clock in the morning, I'd run that thing up there, and I had to be home by noon. And at 6 o'clock during the summer, if it was light enough, I would take dirt bike out after 6 or after we had dinner, and I'd take out, ride it for a little bit. So that was my time. That was my time, I guess we'll call it.
So you didn't do any partying or any of the stereotypical?
No, I tried to do more of that today because I didn't have a chance when I was younger. So this would be like, this is a stock car product version. That would be what they call the Willwood version. This is our version of a hub.
Was this edition made for that machine, or did it just happen to barely fit in there?
It just happened to barely fit in there. We kept moving over, and we put this in. He had to raise the roof. There was something that he had to do. I don't know if we had to take the roof off and came from above, or if we took this wall out and came. I don't remember, because I guess that's high. I guess that would come down. But then we used to grind our own tubes, so he's got a grinder that ground the axle tubes, and just old lathes. He'd use that just for polish and stuff. Didn't turn anything on that anymore. But
so when you were growing up and he was wanting to do these additions, we're just like, all right, get this sledgehammer, we're going to knock down this wall.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Because that dirt was all the way here, so we dug all this out, and then of course put it in and put the dirt back, and but it actually stays fairly cool in here until you start running all the machines, because it's surrounded by the ground. I started my first job actually was working for Tim Steele's dad at Harrus Machining, and it was a CNC shop. And I started in on that, and I probably should have went forward with that, but I switched over to tool and die. But because I don't know how to run these either.
So that's interesting, because when I saw your 21, what it reminded me of was Tim Steele's car with it looked like a similar.
Yeah,
font.
he had a 16. There was 16 or 18. What number did he run?
I think when he came to NASCAR, he ran 21 in ARCA or something, or maybe it was 22. I don't know, but
Yeah.
that's what I thought of when I looked at it. I didn't know that they were from around here, though. That's interesting.
Yeah, he lived over more by the racetrack on the other side. When I worked for they were out in Standale, which is not horrible far from here, but it's past the track out on the other side there. I don't even know. My dad's not even 100% sure. He knows he built it, but he didn't know if it was for a customer or if it's one he drove from in the 60s.
Wow.
Because my dad won the Oswego Classic in 1965. We weren't much doing back then.
What did he do as a job before making race car parts?
I think he's always been involved in that, but he worked for the railroad for 44 years.
Oh.
So he worked for, name every one. I think it was Pennsylvania. They submerged with Central, so then he worked. It was Penn Central, then whatever it is, and today it's known by Conrail. I think when he retired, it was Conrail at that time that he was there.
Is that where you kind of learn how to do everything? Like,
I'm used to it, so I can read it.
I don't.
how do you learn how to build a building? Or you just start, I'm just going to build a building and ask somebody how to do it?
Back then he probably helped people. We had none of us. We don't build today, not in the houses and stuff, or at least I don't.
First of all, if you watch this whole video, you're awesome. Second of all, you may have noticed for like the last, segment of the video with the machine shop and stuff, Logan was not in there. Well, after Johnny's parents came home, they just pulled up chairs and sat down in front of the garage, just chilling, which is where Johnny was sitting when we pulled up, and we thought he was locked out or something, but I guess they just hang out there because it's really not miserably hot in Michigan. It was a nice break from being in North Carolina. She got off talking to them about everything, about their garden and food and just whatever. Like she's Facebook friends with Johnny's mom now. It was kind of funny. The whole Benson family are just cool people. Even Johnny's wife Nicole, we spent a good bit of time with them at their camper trailer at Berlin Raceway. The day after we filmed this, Johnny had a race there and we stayed for that, and we stuck a GoPro inside his super modified, and we'll post a video of that on the Stapleton 42 Extra channel because he wanted the footage and I didn't know how to send it to him. There's not any commentary or anything. It's just watch the race from inside the car. It's pretty cool. I've never seen those cars run before, and they're kind of freaky, honestly. I will say, if you've never seen one, it's a real spectacle. And if you're wondering why we're Johnny's parents not in the video? That's a good question. I don't know. I would imagine they didn't want to be, because Johnny offered his mom to tell stories and she didn't have anything to say. Even though after we were done filming, we sat down there with more chairs for probably another half an hour or so at least and listened to mostly his mom tell stories. Johnny's dad's a very quiet guy, very stoic. He'll sit there and listen. He'll chime in a little bit. If you ask him something, he'll give you a very detailed answer. But he's not a really outspoken guy. I will say everything he did say was super interesting. So that's a good lesson too. If you're going to speak, make your words matter. He's a good example of that. After we got done at Berlin, we drove up to Muskegon, put the truck on a ferry across the lake to Milwaukee, where we filmed an Alan Kulbicki hometown history tour video with one of his old crew guys. And you'll be seeing that coming up in the next couple months here. Extremely comprehensive. We've been places nobody's ever been before, and probably the most detailed thing about Alan's early life that will ever exist once that's done. If you're watching this video and it's not just posted, go look at it. It's probably there already. We also got into Jerry Gunderman's shop, which was the ASA team that Mark Martin raced for in the Miller car before he came back to NASCAR. And at that same time, Alan was working on the other side of the wall in the same building. So that'll be its own video too. Again, if this video is freshly live, it's not ready yet, but a month from now, it will be there. So go to the channel page, hit subscribe, leave thumbs up on this video. Tell us what you learned. Tell us where you're from. I'm interested to know how many people from the Grand Rapids area or like grew up watching Johnny race locally before NASCAR are in there, because when we went to Berlin, there were so many people there. I mean, he's the local legend, him and his dad. And even cooler, we got approached by a lot of people who watch our videos, which is impressive. Like, wow, we're out somewhere we've never been before and people know who we are. Anyway, it's just cool. What we do is really fun. I'm glad you're here for it. If you weren't watching it, we wouldn't be able to do it, because traveling costs money and it takes me days to edit these videos. I could not do this and have a full-time job doing something else. So we appreciate all of you, and go check out another video.
I wish we could have kept track of how many axle tubes that he built. When Lane was buying them, by 34 youngsters years.
You did that in here?
That was just right.
That's awesome. When you're standing in here looking at some of these parts and pieces or things on the wall,
Old patterns and pieces. You know, the jig. And like I said, we wheeled it back here, we wheeled it up there. And so, but you know, like all the patterns, you know, I used to cut pieces out. I don't know if I really think of one thing. In North Carolina, until about 7 years ago, you know, my dad would make all the spindles for that. So he's slowing down. He's slowing down a little bit and enjoys working outside, playing with the garden. He does still some machining here and there, and some welding. People want something fixed or something, he does all that now.
she doesn't care if we're trying to film something. She's like,
We
just
don't
throw my
care.
ball.
It's all good. That's awesome. But yeah, I mean, is you know, all this machinery was here when I was a kid, so this stuff's been around for a long time. And, you know, even though that's a production part, he's not gonna make one or two. You know, so you're gonna make a bunch of them because they'll sell them. Like Arca uses them,